Currently, in the world of Formula E, there is one driver who stands out among the rest as the most unlucky driver of them all. So in this video, we'll tell you who that is and all the events that back up that title. So to begin, we must first ask ourselves, what are the attributes of a race car driver needed to become a true legend of a sport? The obvious ones would be talent, raw pace, racing IQ, and training. The more nuanced ones would be a calmly ruthless attitude, a competitive car, and good racing form. However, the one thing that's rarely mentioned or mentioned only in hushed tones is luck. We all know that in the narrow confines of Formula E tracks, a driver can be completely faultless and do everything possible to avoid an incident and still end up failing to finish, just by simply being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And what about being on the wrong team? Luck must certainly play a role in which teams become available to drivers, right? And you really need to be on the right team to be in the best position to fight for the top places. And then there are the rules. In all forms of motorsport, and more so in the relatively new world of Formula E, there tends to be a lot of grey areas in the rule books, and the official decisions can play a very significant role in how a driver is finally classified, even if they finish in a good track position. To put it simply, luck can make or break the career of racing drivers. Too much bad luck in the highly competitive world of motor racing, and you could be gone, never to be seen again. Sadly, some drivers tend to be at the receiving end of a disproportionate share of misfortune, and one such driver in recent times has been 2019-20 Formula E World Champion Antonio Felix da Costa. Since winning that championship years ago, da Costa has finished higher than 8th place in the championship, with season 9 being the worst of the lot, in which he finished 9th with just a single win. His teammate Pascal Wehrlein managed to fight for the championship for a good part of the season, eventually finishing in 4th. Just by looking at the stats, it's easy to write da Costa off as a mediocre talent whose championship win 3 years ago being possibly seen as a fluke. However, those who have watched him race can attest to the fact that he's easily one of the top talent, not just in Formula E, but of all racing at the moment. Based on just his talent and raw pace, he should have won a lot more races and challenged for a couple of more championships, but on either side of that championship winning season, da Costa's records are pretty ordinary. So what gives? A closer look at his race results will reveal how he's been at the receiving end of poor luck pretty much all his career. He made his Formula E debut during season 1 with Amlin Aguri, a team that was essentially a backmarker. Right out of the bat, the team that da Costa got a chance to drive for was a slow one. Despite this, he picked up a win in just his 3rd race in Formula E. For the rest of the season, he finished in the points in every single race except one to prove that the team or the car didn't do his talents justice. You might ask, what does luck have to do with any of this? It was simply poor timing. Da Costa was very young and hadn't had the opportunity to showcase his talent. As such, none of the top teams had an opening for him, and he had to settle for a smaller team in the form of Amlin Aguri. Things only went downhill from there. He still couldn't find a seat in a top team for the next season and had to stay with Aguri for another year. Misfortune started to pile in quicker, then the Gen 1 cars ran out of charge. Da Costa lost podiums and wins on multiple occasions through no fault of his own, but because of the horrendous unreliability of the Aguri car. In Beijing and Buenos Aires, he should have been on the podium at the very least, but mechanical failures in both races would thwart any good results. His trysts with unlucky penalties will also make their first appearances around about now. He lost pole position in Long Beach because one of his tyres was 0.3 psi under the minimum required. Then in London, he finished 4th to be demoted to 11th after penalties for using too much power and track infringement. In all, he was easily one of the top 5 drivers that year, but he ended the championship in 13th. Any hopes of a change in fortune would disappear for the next 2 years as he switched to Andretti just as the team started making its own powertrain. These 2 seasons would end up being complete write-offs, as the Andretti powertrain would prove to be slow and unreliable, and da Costa finished 20th and 15th in the 3rd and 4th seasons of Formula E. The team finally made a half-decent car for the 2018-19 season in partnership with BMW, and da Costa started the season with a bang by taking the pole and the win. It looked as if luck had finally taken a turn for the better. Unfortunately, any relief da Costa might have felt evaporated at the very next race. An over-enthusiastic move not only ended his race, but also that of his then teammate Alexander Sims. It should have been an easy 1-2 for the team. While it was a mistake on Da Costa's part, it was bad luck that made the outcome so much worse than it should have been. More misfortune in the form of hydraulics failure and a disqualification in the latter races would follow, and he would finish the championship in 6th. His luck would actually improve after this, and he would get pretty much every decision right during the 2019-20 season as he signed with DS Techeetah, the top team that year. He would finally be able to convert good positions into good results, and the rules didn't screw with him. He got to showcase his talents without any interruptions from Lady Luck, and he unsurprisingly picked up his maiden Formula E championship. Sadly, that would be the last time Da Costa would enjoy an extended period of success. The frequency with which misfortune has been hitting him since then has only gotten worse, with things being taken to the next level in Season 9. In Diriyah, he suffered damage through no fault of his own, lost the lead in Sao Paulo, ended up being the victim in a crash in Berlin, possibly costing him a podium, picked up a puncture in Monaco, is involved in the pile-up in Rome through no fault of his own, and his season is capped off with a ridiculous 3-minute penalty in London. To put it simply, all this bad luck is more than the fair share any driver should receive, let alone one as talented as Antonio Felix da Costa. It's praiseworthy how calm and collected Da Costa manages to be despite facing such harsh odds. Now, we don't have a crystal ball to predict if his bad luck will end anytime soon, but we do know 2 things. Nothing lasts forever, including bad luck, and Da Costa will go down in Formula E history as one of its most legendary drivers, even if the stats don't reflect everything he's capable of and deserves. Now, tell us your thoughts on Da Costa. Let us know in the comments below, and remember to subscribe for more Formula E content.